In the summer of 2025, the world watched as Israel and Iran exchanged blows in a short, brutal conflict. In 12 days, Israeli forces launched hundreds of strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities, missile bases, and critical infrastructure, while Iran responded with more than 500 ballistic missiles. What seemed like another chapter in a long-running regional rivalry produced an unexpected side effect. China, often cast as a distant, neutral power in Middle Eastern affairs, began sounding alarms. Chinese military analysts, commentators, and policymakers described the Israeli operations not simply as a tactical success, but as a Pandora's box of global security risks. Mossad and Israel Defense Forces operatives had reportedly smuggled weapon components across borders, disabled Iran's radar and air defense systems from the inside, and turned Iranian infrastructure against itself. One Iranian operative, later interviewed on Israeli television, even recounted how he destroyed a ballistic missile launcher while communicating directly with Tel Aviv. For Beijing, a government that prizes control and security, these revelations felt less like a distant drama and more like a mirror reflecting its own vulnerabilities. The reactions were unusually blunt for official Chinese commentaries. State-aligned analysts described Israel's deep penetration of Iran's intelligence apparatus as a new form of intelligence warfare, warning that if Mossad could turn off Iran's radars and missiles, other authoritarian states could be similarly exposed. Beijing's military commentators claimed that the episode opened a dangerous precedent and that Chinese security planners had to prepare for such scenarios. Within weeks of the conflict, Chinese technical teams began working alongside Iranian counterparts to audit databases, review registry systems, and identify how Israeli intelligence had breached sensitive networks. In Chinese military journals, the episode became a case study, a real-time cautionary tale about the limits of traditional defenses in an age of hybrid warfare. The question that emerged inside the People's Liberation Army and the Ministry of State Security was as stark as it was uncomfortable. If Mossad can do this to Iran, could it happen to us? To understand why Chinese strategists reacted so strongly, one must revisit the history of Israeli covert operations and the broader landscape of intelligence warfare in the Middle East. Israel's intelligence community, particularly Mossad, has long combined human intelligence, HUMINT, cyber operations, and surgical strikes to neutralize threats far beyond Israel's borders. Over the decades, Mossad has carried out assassinations, cyber sabotages, and exfiltration missions from Beirut to Kuala Lumpur. Several operations stand out as precursors to the 2025 infiltration that so alarmed China. One of the most consequential covert operations in recent memory was the Stuxnet worm discovered in 2010. Developed under a joint US-Israeli program codenamed Olympic Games, Stuxnet was a highly sophisticated computer worm designed to infect Iran's uranium enrichment facilities. The malware exploited previously unknown zero-day vulnerabilities in Windows systems and sought out Siemens industrial control software controlling centrifuges at Natanz. Once inside, Stuxnet manipulated the valves controlling uranium gas, causing centrifuges to spin themselves to destruction while sending false feedback to operators. By the time Iranian engineers realized something was wrong, nearly one-fifth of the country's nuclear centrifuges were reportedly destroyed. The worm infected over 200,000 computers and physically damaged 1,000 machines, highlighting that air-gapped networks could be breached by agents carrying compromised USB drives. Stuxnet's significance went beyond Iran. It established cyber tools as digital weapons, proving that malware could cross from the digital realm into the physical world to disable industrial infrastructure. For China, home to vast networks of industrial control systems and a frequent target of cyber espionage, the precedent was unsettling. In 2015, Chinese state media warned that Stuxnet's success demonstrated the vulnerability of critical infrastructure and emphasized the need for domestic innovation in industrial control systems. The worm also showed that covert operations could be executed without leaving obvious fingerprints. No nation ever officially claimed responsibility, but it was widely accepted as a US-Israeli collaboration. For Beijing, which is sensitive to the idea of foreign intelligence penetrating its own networks, Stuxnet became a cautionary tale and a rallying point for developing indigenous software and cybersecurity standards. Israel's covert campaign against Iran has not been limited to malware. In 2010, Iranian nuclear scientist Masoud Ali Mohammadi was assassinated in Tehran by a remote-controlled bomb. In 2011, Majid Shahriari and Dariush Rezainejad were killed in separate shootings attributed to Mossad. The most dramatic assassination occurred in November 2020, when Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, often described as the father of Iran's nuclear program, was killed outside Tehran by a remote-controlled weapon system. According to Iranian officials, a satellite-controlled machine gun targeted his convoy. Iranian state media claimed the weapon used artificial intelligence and facial recognition to avoid harming his wife. While Israel never confirmed involvement, Iranian authorities repeatedly accused Mossad. These assassinations underscore Mossad's ability to operate inside a heavily policed country, recruit local assets, and field advanced technology. They also highlight a long-standing paradox. Iran's security apparatus can be both brutal and porous. The cumulative effect of these operations has been to sow distrust within the Iranian government and to degrade key programs, nuclear, missile, and conventional, without the need for full-scale war. For Beijing, which views its own scientists and infrastructure as critical national assets, the assassinations serve as a reminder that innovation and security are inseparable. After the Fakhrizadeh killing, Chinese commentators warned that Iran's failure to protect such high-profile individuals revealed weaknesses that could be exploited elsewhere, especially by external intelligence services. Fast forward to June 2025, when Israeli forces launched Operation Rising Lion. According to the Al Jazeera Center for Studies, Israel's Air Force flew nearly 200 fighters in 5 waves, striking dozens of targets across Iran in the opening hours. The operation sought to blind and destroy Iran's radar, missile, and nuclear infrastructure. Analysts called the strategy systemic shock, designed to collapse command networks and create confusion. Sub-operations included targeted assassinations of senior Revolutionary Guard commanders and the destruction of missile factories and depots. Crucially, Israeli jets faced little resistance because Mossad agents on the ground had disabled air defense systems. Chinese observers later described this combination of sabotage and precision strikes as an exemplar of hybrid warfare. Reports from Western outlets added color to the narrative. Defense One, citing Israeli officials, noted that Mossad operatives had built a covert drone base inside Iran prior to the attack and had placed explosive drones near surface-to-air missile batteries to neutralize them at the onset of the conflict. The Atlantic described how Mossad agents recruited disaffected Iranians, smuggled precision weapons, and established a network of safe houses to support the mission. The operation's success depended not only on high-tech stealth aircraft, but on human intelligence networks able to infiltrate and sabotage Iranian installations. With this background, Beijing's reaction to the 2025 war appears less surprising. Chinese strategists had long studied Mossad's operations, but the scale and audacity of Operation Rising Lion marked a turning point. In the days following the strike, Chinese military analysts quoted by the South China Morning Post argued that the ability to turn off Iranian radar and missile systems was a new form of intelligence warfare. Fu Qianshao, a former PLA Air Force officer, warned that Israeli agents had smuggled drones and precision weapons into Iran, forming a covert base that effectively neutralized Iran's air defenses. He described the operation as a wake-up call for countries dependent on tightly controlled information systems, emphasizing that sabotage from within can neutralize even sophisticated hardware. Another Chinese commentary from the Iranian site IRAF summarized Beijing's concerns. Citing a modern diplomacy analysis, the article noted that China and Iran had launched joint investigations into how Mossad infiltrated Iranian government databases and civil registration systems. The same piece explained that China was providing investigation satellites and cooperating with companies like Changguang to enhance Iran's ability to monitor Israeli movements. It reported that Iran had decided to adopt China's Beidou navigation system to replace GPS, thereby reducing dependence on Western technologies. Beijing, it said, sees the stability of the Islamic Republic as part of China's 25-year cooperation agreement, linking Iranian security to the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Technological vulnerability. Israeli agents allegedly infiltrated and disabled Iran's air defense radars and missile launchers from the inside, raising fears that similar technology could be used against Chinese systems. Chinese analysts saw this as evidence that cyber and physical sabotage could neutralize anti-access area denial, A2AD networks, without overt attacks. They worried that the next war might be decided not by tank battles or missile exchanges, but by hidden operatives hacking and sabotaging radars. Information security. The infiltration reportedly involved breaching Iranian government databases and registry systems. Chinese officials have long feared foreign intelligence penetrations of their own databases. Reuters reported in May 2025 that Beijing threatened to crack down on infiltration and sabotage activities of foreign anti-China forces, after the CIA released Mandarin language recruitment videos encouraging Chinese officials to defect. A foreign ministry spokesperson warned that the US was openly luring Chinese personnel to provide secrets, labeling it a naked political provocation. This broad concern about infiltration intersected with the specific example of Israel hacking Iranian systems, reinforcing a narrative that foreign spies are constantly probing authoritarian states for weaknesses. Alliance networks and geoeconomic interests. China's Belt and Road Initiative depends on stability across the Middle East. Instability in Iran could threaten oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, the Red Sea, and Bab al-Mandab. As the IRAF article emphasized, Beijing sees the stability of Iran as integral to its own economic security. Chinese policy documents link Iranian infrastructure to the BRI's land corridors through Central Asia and maritime routes in the Indian Ocean. Thus, any covert campaign that undermines Iran's military might be seen as indirectly threatening Chinese energy security. Precedent for authoritarian regimes. Chinese analysts argued that Mossad's success sets a precedent that could be applied against any authoritarian state. Modern diplomacy warned that Mossad's methods create a dangerous precedent for covert operations that could target any authoritarian state. Beijing fears that techniques developed for Iran could be adapted to bypass Chinese security. Smuggling components, recruiting insiders, disabling radars, and coordinating sabotage with external strikes. According to multiple reports, China responded to Operation Rising Lion not just rhetorically, but through concrete actions. The modern diplomacy and IRAF articles paint a picture of rapid deepening of Sino-Iranian military and intelligence cooperation. Key elements include joint investigations. Chinese and Iranian officials launched joint probes to determine how Israeli operatives breached government databases. This cooperation involved not only the Ministry of Intelligence in Tehran, but also China's Ministry of State Security and the PLA's Strategic Support Force. Analysts believe that China is sharing forensic tools and digital forensics expertise to trace infiltration vectors. Space and surveillance. China is supplying investigation satellites and working with companies such as Changguang to improve Iran's ability to track Israeli activities. Beijing has also offered to provide high-resolution imaging satellites, drawing on its growing commercial space sector. By giving Iran access to Chinese commercial satellites, Beijing effectively expands its own surveillance network in the Middle East. Beidou navigation system. Iran reportedly decided to transition from GPS to China's Beidou for military and civil navigation. Chinese officials argue that Beidou offers greater cybersecurity because it is less susceptible to Western manipulation. For Beijing, persuading allies to adopt Beidou not only reduces vulnerability, but also locks them into China's technological ecosystem. Missile and radar assistance. China is supplying solid fuel raw materials and microprocessors to help Iran rebuild missile capabilities destroyed in the war. Reports indicate that Iran has requested advanced anti-stealth radars such as the YLC-8B and JY-27A, which China claims can detect F-35 fighters. Beijing views this as a way to deter Israeli aircraft and to showcase Chinese radar technology to the broader region. Cybersecurity and software. Chinese strategists are advocating for Iran to replace Western software with secure Chinese alternatives. In practical terms, this means using Chinese operating systems, databases, and communications equipment to reduce the risk of infiltration via backdoors. Beijing sees itself as a provider of trusted technology for like-minded states. Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO. The IRAF report notes that SCO member states agreed in 2025 to create a comprehensive security center to enhance intelligence coordination, including with Iran, and to neutralize operations attributed to Mossad. China is promoting this center as an institutional mechanism to share intelligence and coordinate counter-espionage among Eurasian states. These initiatives demonstrate that Beijing is doubling down on its partnership with Tehran, at least in the security domain. In part, this reflects a long-term trend. The two governments signed a 25-year strategic cooperation agreement in 2021, covering infrastructure, energy, and military ties. Yet the pace and scope of cooperation accelerated after the 2025 war, revealing how the conflict created a new sense of urgency. While the 12-day war served as a catalyst, Chinese concerns about infiltration and sabotage are not new. The Ministry of State Security has long warned of hostile foreign intelligence operations within China, and official media regularly highlights cases of espionage. In May 2025, after the CIA posted Mandarin language recruitment videos, Beijing warned it would crack down on infiltration and sabotage activities of foreign anti-China forces. A foreign ministry spokesperson accused the CIA of actively luring Chinese officials to leak secrets, while state security cases described individuals who sold state secrets or recorded internal meetings for foreign agencies. The announcement was part of a broader campaign to raise public awareness of spying risks and to deter defections. Beijing's fear of infiltration also stems from historical episodes in which foreign intelligence services reportedly penetrated Chinese networks. In 2010, news reports surfaced that US and Israeli intelligence had used the Flame and Dooku malware, successors to Stuxnet, to target Middle Eastern infrastructure, raising concerns that similar tools could be deployed against Chinese industrial control systems. In 2017, Chinese authorities accused the CIA of recruiting a Ministry of State Security official who provided sensitive information on government operations. More recently, Chinese state television aired documentaries showing alleged CIA agents caught inside China. While independent verification of these incidents is difficult, they illustrate Beijing's narrative that foreign intelligence services are constantly probing Chinese defenses. The Mossad Iran episode thus fit into a larger frame, an ongoing struggle against invisible adversaries. From China's perspective, Iran's experience offers lessons in both failure and resilience. The Modern Diplomacy article summarized the conclusions Chinese strategists drew from the war. Iran's defenses, though extensive on paper, contained massive security gaps. Mossad agents smuggled equipment, disabled air defense systems from within, and planted operatives inside sensitive facilities. One Iranian operative admitted to Israeli media that he destroyed a ballistic missile launcher while communicating with Tel Aviv. The ability of Israeli intelligence to recruit Iranian citizens and exploit insider access suggested that authoritarian systems are only as secure as the loyalty and competence of their personnel. In a state that relies on secrecy and fear, disgruntled officials can become a significant vulnerability. Yet Iran's response also offered points of resilience. Within days of the strikes, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, repaired damaged radars and launched dozens of missile volleys back at Israel. Iranian engineers began installing Chinese radar systems and implementing Beidou navigation. The rapid adaptation underscored that even after severe damage, a state can reconstitute capability if it has external support and domestic expertise. Chinese analysts saw this as proof that alliances and redundancy are key to surviving covert attacks. With the operational details and cooperation underway, Chinese decision-makers face a strategic debate. Some voices in the PLA and the foreign policy community argue for doubling down on Iran, providing more technology, investing in Iranian infrastructure, and positioning China as Tehran's principal great power partner. Others caution that China may be projecting its own fears onto a Middle Eastern conflict and risk entangling itself in Israel's long shadow war. Protecting the Belt and Road, Iran occupies a critical node in the Belt and Road Initiative. Its ports on the Persian Gulf and its overland routes through Central Asia connect Chinese trade to the Middle East and Europe. Instability or regime collapse could jeopardize energy supplies and create power vacuums exploited by rivals. Thus, strengthening Iran's defenses is seen as protecting Chinese geoeconomic interests. Technological showcase. Providing advanced radars, satellites, and cybersecurity tools demonstrates the capabilities of China's defense industry. If Chinese systems successfully protect Iranian facilities from further Israeli attacks, it would be a powerful advertisement for Beijing's military exports. This could attract other clients seeking alternatives to US technology. Building a multilateral security framework. The establishment of the SCO Comprehensive Security Center offers a platform for joint intelligence analysis and anti-sabotage measures. By leading such initiatives, China can shape regional security architecture, reduce US and Israeli influence, and deepen ties with Russia, Iran, and Central Asian states. Perception of shared threat. Chinese commentators emphasize that Mossad's methods could be replicated against China. Investing in Iranian counterintelligence is thus framed as part of protecting China itself. Joint exercises and intelligence exchanges are justified as proactive defense. Overextension risk. Iran's confrontation with Israel is highly volatile. Chinese analysts who favor caution note that entanglement could drag Beijing into unpredictable confrontations. The US and Europe remain vital trading partners. Openly siding with Iran could jeopardize these relationships. Different threat vectors. Some experts argue that China's vulnerabilities differ from Iran's. Iran's security apparatus is deeply factionalized and often penetrated by various foreign actors, including opposition groups and ethnic minorities. China's security services are more centralized and have far greater resources. A one-to-one comparison may overstate the risk. Illusion of control. Relying on technology transfers and external radars does not guarantee immunity. Stuxnet showed that even advanced software can be compromised if insiders carry infected devices. Overconfidence in technical solutions could lull China into ignoring the need for political reforms that build loyalty and reduce internal dissent. Alienating Israel. Israel is a major technology partner for China, particularly in fields like agriculture, water management, and some military technologies. Taking an overtly pro-Iranian stance could sour relations, cut access to Israeli innovation, and align Beijing against a country that shares concerns about US hegemony in some areas. China's debate about Mossad's infiltration is not happening in isolation. Past events across the globe inform Beijing's thinking on intelligence, sovereignty, and the limits of power. In the 1960s and 1970s, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, experienced intense internal purges during the Cultural Revolution. Factional struggles and infiltration by rival groups destabilized provinces and ministries. Although these events were domestic, they taught the CCP that unity and loyalty are vital in authoritarian systems. Modern Chinese security doctrine still emphasizes ideological security, fearing that Western intelligence agencies might exploit internal dissent as they once exploited factionalism in Iran. The Mossad operation reinforces this by showing how disgruntled insiders can enable sabotage. In the early 2010s, Western media reported that the CIA's network of sources inside China was rolled up. According to the New York Times, between 2010 and 2012, the Chinese government executed or imprisoned more than a dozen informants. US officials later suggested that a mole within the CIA or a compromised communication system may have exposed the network. Beijing used the episode to promote a narrative of vigilance. Foreign spies are constantly infiltrating. The crackdown was credited to improved counterintelligence and to the Ministry of State Security's ability to detect unusual communication patterns. The incident also showed the limitations of clandestine networks and the constant cat-and-mouse game between spy agencies. Chinese security analysts also study the experiences of North Korea, another authoritarian state. Despite its draconian controls, Pyongyang has experienced high-profile defections and infiltration by foreign intelligence. In 1997, North Korean submarine crews were captured off the coast of South Korea, revealing infiltration attempts. More recently, South Korea's National Intelligence Service reported that it had recruited North Korean hackers. These episodes remind Beijing that even hermetically sealed regimes are vulnerable to human intelligence. The 2025 Mossad operation therefore resonates because it appears to prove that no system is impregnable. China also looks at the cyber cooperation between Russia and Iran. After the Stuxnet attack, Russia helped Iran enhance its cyber defenses, providing training and software. In return, Iran shared lessons from its True Promise missile operations during the 2025 war. Moscow's ability to bounce back from Western cyber attacks, such as the NotPetya and SolarWinds intrusions, reinforces to Chinese strategists that resilience comes from experience and constant upgrades, not from a static security architecture. China's push to strengthen Iran's cyber capabilities is partly inspired by Russia's example. The SolarWinds hack of 2020, attributed to a Russian intelligence group, compromised US government agencies and major corporations by inserting malware into software updates. US officials described it as the most sophisticated cyber intrusion in history. For China, SolarWinds underscored the danger of supply chain infiltration. Attackers compromised trusted software vendors to gain access to thousands of networks. Chinese cybersecurity experts noted that the technique resembled how Stuxnet used Siemens equipment. The implication for Beijing is clear. Security must be built into procurement and maintenance, and reliance on foreign software can open backdoors. While the 2025 conflict triggered China's alarm, Israel's strategic calculations also reveal broader trends in the global power contest. Israel's ability to carry out such a complex operation stems from years of investment in intelligence fusion, cyber warfare, and special operations forces. By attacking radars, missile launchers, nuclear facilities, and command centers simultaneously, Israel aimed to achieve strategic surprise and degrade Iran's retaliatory capacity. The operation was supported by the United States under Operation Midnight Hammer, according to Al Jazeera. Some analysts have suggested that US intelligence provided satellite coverage, communications jamming, and real-time targeting data. For Beijing, the extent of US-Israeli cooperation underscores the advantages of alliances and integration. China has sought to build its own network of partners through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the BRI. but it lacks the deep interoperability that the US shares with Israel. Interoperability is not just about hardware. It requires shared doctrine, training, and trust. If China wants to project power and protect its interests abroad, it will have to build similar capabilities, either with Russia and Iran or through new regional architectures. At the same time, Israel's actions could have unintended consequences. By demonstrating that clandestine sabotage can defeat sophisticated defenses, Israel may encourage other states to invest in asymmetric warfare. Authoritarian governments may become more paranoid, implementing draconian controls that could backfire by alienating citizens and driving potential insiders into the arms of foreign intelligence. In this sense, the Israeli operation has accelerated a security spiral. States build more defenses, spies develop more creative ways around them, and the cycle continues. Returning to the core question, should China double down on protecting Iran, or is Beijing projecting its own fears? The answer is likely a mix of both. China's interests in Iran are tangible: energy security, BRI corridors, defense contracts, and the desire to counterbalance US influence in the Middle East. Strengthening Iran's defenses and investigating Mossad's methods serve those interests. Yet there is also a deeper psychological dimension. Chinese leaders have always been sensitive to the specter of foreign penetration, whether through opium wars, missionary activity, or modern cyber tools. The 2025 war jolted that anxiety to the surface. Doubling down makes sense if Chinese policymakers believe that the methods used against Iran are directly applicable to China, and that a stronger Iran will enhance regional stability. It also reinforces Beijing's status as a guarantor for its partners, which could attract more states to its orbit. The cooperation on satellites, Beidou, missiles, and cybersecurity demonstrates what Chinese security packages might offer. However, projecting fears warns that not all threats are equal. Iran's opaque factional politics, divided security services, and economic fragility make it uniquely susceptible to infiltration. China's political system, while not invulnerable, is more centralized and resources for counterintelligence are vast. China's biggest vulnerability may not be stealth drones or USB worms, but domestic distrust, economic pressures, and demographic trends. Doubling down on Iran might feed Chinese paranoia without addressing these systemic issues. The 2025 Israel-Iran war revealed more than just strategic fireworks. It illuminated fault lines in the global security architecture. For China, Mossad's deep infiltration into Iran was both a practical lesson and a psychological shock. The episode validated long-held fears about foreign intelligence penetrating authoritarian systems and triggered a wave of technical cooperation with Tehran. Chinese analysts warned of a Pandora's box of covert operations that could be directed against any state, and Beijing responded by providing satellites, radars, missile parts, and navigation systems to Iran. Past episodes like Stuxnet demonstrated that cyber and physical sabotage could devastate critical infrastructure. The 2025 war showed that sabotage can be synchronized with kinetic strikes to neutralize an adversary's defenses. These lessons resonate strongly in Beijing, where the specter of infiltration has haunted policy debates since the Cultural Revolution and the crackdowns on CIA networks. The question of whether to double down or project fears remains open, but the underlying reality is that intelligence warfare has changed. As espionage and sabotage techniques evolve, the dividing line between peacetime and wartime blurs, and authoritarian regimes must confront not only external enemies, but the possibility of internal betrayal. In the end, wars are not won solely by weapons or by economic production, but by the ecosystems of intelligence, logistics, and resilience that underpin them. Israel's ability to turn off Iran's radars during Operation Rising Lion came from decades of investment in human networks and technological innovation. Whether China can build a similarly adaptive intelligence ecosystem, one that anticipates, detects, and neutralizes covert threats, will determine if the lessons of Iran are a wake-up call heeded or a cautionary tale ignored.